Hello, good day, and welcome. It is Monday, the 20th of July, 2026. I'm Alec Hogg, and I'd love to have you with me for the BizNews Edge. Well, today we've got Gayton McKenzie defending his World Cup travel bill, a breakthrough for South Africa's waste pickers. South 32 betting its future on copper and zinc, and some really good numbers today that sent the share price up 5%, and a global helium squeeze with an unlikely South African upside. And then my main conversation, Chris Pappas, the mayor of Mgeni, who was about to leave the scene and go into the private sector, probably a non-government organization, and then decided to change his mind when nobody around him was prepared to stand. We'll have that focused part of that interview for you in a little while. Well, first up, the FIFA World Cup bill, or rather the one that the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, headed by the PA leader Gayton McKenzie, has racked up. It's over 30 million rand, he's confirmed that, but he wants credit for transparency. He's published every rand of the 31 million, roughly, that was spent, or that taxpayers spent to ship Gayton's sizable FIFA group delegation, well over 100 people, to Mexico and the United States. His personal bill, the sports minister tells us, was just over $1 million. The rest went on legends, matches, hospitality suites, exhibition stands dressed up as nation branding, and of course tickets to the games themselves. I suppose it's all fair enough, except that the same minister then decided to reach for the oldest trick in the political book, and he accused the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape for sending back more than 800 million rand in unspent housing money. I guess Gayton doesn't miss a beat when it comes to putting his stakes in the ground for the November the 4th election. He knows his constituency will be more angry about that they could have got houses, than him having, well, a jolly good time, one would hope, at the World Cup. Still, two wrongs don't make a right. The real question isn't whether McKenzie personally pocketed anything. Nothing here suggests that he did. It's whether a cash-strapped state like ours should be underwriting exhibition soccer matches and Formula One networking sessions at all, and whether we're accounting for every cent is now doing duty for we shouldn't have spent it. Next, a quietly important story out of Johannesburg. Well, you've seen them on every street corner and at every landfill, the reclaimers or waste pickers who push those trolleys piled high with plastic, cardboard and cans. They're the guys who go out every week into your neighborhood to properly recycle the stuff that most South Africans sadly don't even think about. Well, 3 organizations that represent them have now teamed up with the industry and a global funder to finally get these workers registered, and they want to get them properly paid for what they collect. 10,000 of the waste pickers will start the ball rolling. By the end of the year, they're hoping to get to 82,000 nationwide. It's a real test, though, of whether South Africa can formalize and fairly reward work that's been done informally for decades, and indeed whether it's going to grow the pile, which at the moment pretty much anybody could go into that business if you like, or if it's going to do the typical old South African thing of once we formalize it, well, those who are in benefit, those who aren't, tough. Also, mining news now. South 32 quietly delivered one of its strongest quarters in results that were published this morning on SENS. Beat full-year production guidance across the board, and the share price was up nearly 5% as a result. But the real story is the pivot. New chief executive Matt Daly has used his first update to confirm that South32 is exiting aluminium altogether, selling a business that includes the giant hillside smelter in KwaZulu-Natal. That's all going off to Alcoa, and the deal could be worth up to $5.6 billion US. What's left in South32, which you may recall was created when BHP Billiton spun off primarily its South African assets, but there were some others around the world, is going to be a copper and zinc focused miner anchored by nothing in South Africa, Sierra Gorda in Chile, where a new expansion should lift the copper output by around 30%, and the Taylor project in Arizona, which is in the final processes of getting its US permitting approved. Copper prices, meanwhile, are up more than 40% year on year, so you can see why the miners love it so much, including our own Anglo-American. Well, is it our own anymore, with De Beers gone and Anglo Platinum gone, and who knows what's left there. Anyway, South32 is betting its future on the metals that the world's energy transition most needs. Copper at the forefront. And to close out our headlines, as we've been tracking on BizNews, Beijing has decided to crack down on exports of helium. And today, the London Financial Times, our partners over there, decided to give it the full treatment and explain that helium is being squeezed, with the supply of helium being squeezed by Beijing, means that Europe's chip and MRI supply chains are now being disrupted, just as the Qatari output has pretty much ended for the moment anyway. And here's a South African twist. Renergen's Virginia gas project, which is now under the NASDAQ and JSE-listed ASP Isotopes, remember that merger in January, it sits on a helium concentrate 10 times the global average. With Russian supply choked and the Qatar hobbled because of what's going on at the war in the Middle East, ASP Isotopes has already locked in its first take-or-pay contract. Backed by hundreds of millions in US and Standard Bank funding, it's ready to take off, perhaps, and yet there's still skepticism amongst many in South Africa. Well, when the global scarcity bites, though, our backyard suddenly matters to Berlin, Beijing, Washington, and beyond. Right, so let's get into today's main conversation. I had a chat with Chris Pappas, Mayor of Mgeni. It is lengthy. It is fascinating, as conversations with Chris tend to be. He really is a class act. And the full interview is in the director's cut. That's on BizNews for BizNews Premium members. Or if you prefer to do your paying for great journalism on YouTube, well, you can become a member there and get access to the members only. But in April, that's only a few months ago, Chris told the world that he would not be standing for re-election as mayor of Mgeni. Reason was that he was moving across to the private sector. At the time, he apparently had quite a few offers, and you can imagine someone with his profile and his competence, and he's done a wonderful job in that town, which is Howick, or best known for Howick and Hilton, would be snapped up by a willing employer. But now he's changed his mind. I've no doubt that the supporters who turned this primarily Zulu-speaking constituency into the DA's only controlled ward or municipality in KZN will be absolutely delighted, because as you'll hear in this clip and indeed in the full interview, Chris has done quite a turnaround job there. Here's our conversation. He was tipped as a rising star of the DA. Time magazine noticed him twice. He was the party's premier candidate in KwaZulu-Natal. And by April this year, he told the public he was walking away from the Umgeni mayorship for the private sector, where he had an opportunity. But now he's back, running for a second term. Mayor Chris Pappas joins me. We'll find out what gives. Well, Chris, you got lots of fans, not just in the Howick stroke Umgeni region, but all around the country. And when you said that you would not be running for mayor, but leaving for a private sector position, there was a lot of unhappiness about it. What happened, though, that you've changed your mind between April and July?
How's it, Alec? Nice to see you again. It's been a while. Alex, so firstly, there was no applicant for my position from my caucus. Sort of a natural successor. My caucus members said that they are not going to apply. No one wants to contest me. That I need to apply. So essentially, I don't want to use the word sabotaging, but deliberately ensuring that the party had to reopen the process because they didn't want to contest the position. But from that, then ensued a discussion to say, well, Chris, what is going to happen to not just the DA in the Ngeni Council, but what happens to the broader region? It's not just about politics. It's about business. It's about social services. It's about a direction. It's about stability, etc. So whether it was friends and family, whether it was my political party, my caucus, there was a discussion around saying, listen, what is the responsible thing to do for this area? So I guess initially, it was a selfish decision to say that my 14 years in politics, I'd like to go and do something else for a little bit, grow my skills somewhere else, gain experience somewhere else. But then, to sit down and have that conversation with people who have a genuine interest in the future of this region, and understand the responsibility of that, then shaped my decision.
Okay, so let's look ahead to 2029. If you are to be re-elected, and I guess the suggestions would be pretty strong at the moment. Maybe before we get there, do you have polling on at that kind of granular level on how well you or how high your chances are of re-election?
The party at a national level wouldn't do polling on a small municipality like ours, so we'd use the provincial trends that they then provide to the organization. But what we've done is, what Howick is like. We have a pool of skills here of retirees, and some of those retirees are ex-pollsters and statisticians, and so we make use of our own polling here. So we fund our own polling. I can't give you the results of those yet because they're not complete yet. We run them 3 months before. So we should go get those in the next couple of weeks, and that will then guide the last push towards the end of the election. But if we look at the KwaZulu-Natal polling, there's definitely a shift in the province. I think after 2024, there's more of an appetite for people to change their vote. And if we draw on historical results for this area as well, if you look at the outcomes of 2024 on the provincial ballot in this particular area, we did quite significantly better than on the national ballot, and I guess that's because we had the premier candidate for the DA was from this area, as well as then turnout. We had the highest turnout in the province at more than 70%. Which we think is also linked to the fact that there was a local personality linked to the 2024 campaign. Polling will be out shortly, but provincial trends indicate quite a significant shift, specifically in the black electorate in KZN, but also the middle class in general.
So the John Steenhuisen disclosures, scandal, fracas, call it what you will, unlikely to affect you in Umgeni?
I'm sure it will. I don't think you can't escape any sort of bad publicity. That does definitely affect voter sentiment. I do think it's still a fresh issue to people, and the party leadership is, as they always do when there is some sort of issue that arises in the media, they will claw back the narrative that is the more correct narrative or the more balanced narrative. I think whenever these things come out, automatically the public will jump onto, or the media will jump onto the most dramatic part of that narrative. And slowly, as the party claws back the actual more centered or balanced narrative, voters then center back to the DA. I think the other thing is that this is a local government election, and we are speaking about a municipality where we are trying to protect us from going backwards into the hands of the MK or into the ANC. And I think people can discern or can differentiate between voting for whether it's John Steenhuisen or Jordan Hill Lewis or whoever it might be, and voting for the DA here locally. So yeah, I think there's definitely damage control to be done. But I think we can reassure our residents here locally that you're not voting for national politics. You're voting to protect your local municipality, your local roads, your refuse collection, etc. And that you still have time to consider your national vote if that is where you want to punish the DA, if you want to punish the DA at all.
We've noticed the semigration from the poorly governed parts of the country to the better governed parts of the country. Are you seeing any of that happening in the Howick region?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of people that move up from Pietermaritzburg to the Hilton area in particular, and a lot of people who move from the inland, so the battlefields area of KZN, your Ladysmiths, Escorts, those areas to KZN. Actually, not to KZN, to Howick and to Mgeni. There are a lot of people from Johannesburg who might find Cape Town too expensive, and the Western Cape too expensive, and they're looking for an affordable lifestyle, but the one that also has good education, country feel, slower, and those people are moving here as well. And of course, the retirees. This is seen as a safe space. It is seen as a functional space for people who can then send their parents here, their grandparents here, and it's not just a place, as people say, it's not God's waiting place. It is actually a place where you come to have your better life as a senior citizen, and it's seen as safe and clean and functional. So yeah, absolutely, we've seen that, and we see it in the building plans, Alex. So when we look at the building plans that are passed in the whole of KZN, we passed the third highest number of building plans of any municipality in KwaZulu-Natal, and that is despite us being the 34th biggest municipality. So out of all the municipalities, we are number 34, but we passed more building plans than Maritzburg, Newcastle, Port Shepstone, Ulundi, Ladysmith, all of those places. And that's because people are building, people are expanding, people are investing in this area, and that's mostly residential.
That's an extraordinary stat, and I guess one that we should be looking at more closely all around the country. Better governance means people have more security or of tenure, and they're more comfortable in making the investment. But when you have a look at November the 4th and when the numbers came in, you won very, very narrowly last time around. Are you confident that you'll have at least some kind of a cushion this time?
I do. I'm supposed to say that as a politician, to say yes, we'll do better and we'll grow. But I think the numbers speak for themselves. The DA grew by 2,500 votes between 2021 and 2024. So we had 14,000 odd votes in 2021, the local government election. The national election comes along and we grew by 2,500 votes, so 16,500 voters. And when we look at where most of those votes came from, they were new votes. They were votes in peri-urban and township areas. And collectively across the whole municipality, those added up. So I think that goes to show that the propaganda that was put out there in 2021 is going to be a lot harder to put out again by our opponents, specifically in new voter markets. The ANC is not going to be able to go, or the MK is not going to be able to go to voters and say the DA is going to bring back apartheid, the DA is going to take away your RDP house, the DA is going to stop your grant. And use those scare tactics, because they've had a DA government now for five years, the people of Mgeni, and those things haven't happened. But what people can see is that for the most part, things have got better. So we're going to go out there, and you mentioned it before, Our wicket is one where we say, look at what we've done. We promised you that we'll show you difference. We don't have to promise you anymore. We're now showing you the results. Give us an opportunity to do more.
We saw a historic by-election win recently in an all-black suburb or township where the DA won that by-election. But I guess yours would have been more historic because it is very much a Zulu-speaking ward by numbers. Are you feeling as though that momentum, and talk as Chris Pappas, not as a politician here, is going to be reflected on after the votes on November the 4th? And if so, how much of an upside would you expect to see from your party?
Generally, or here in Mgeni?
I think generally, in Mgeni, most people would say you've done a good job and your residents are going to reward you for it. That's logic. But generally around the country, the DA itself, is it still gathering momentum, or is it, and if so, what would a good result be in your opinion?
Sure. So yeah, speaking as Chris, I think yes, Alec. I don't think it's going to be, sort of record-breaking 50%, 35%, etc. But I do think that there's been a political mind shift in South Africa. Having this coalition government at a national level has shown South Africans something different, a new political spectrum that can exist. That old narratives are not necessarily true for all political parties, not just the DA. And I do think that the DA will grow as a voter percentage. Besides the fact that the advantage is that we do well at local government elections because that's where we are experts at, and we generally do better there. But I do think that there is an emerging sentiment around the power of voting, or the ability to change through votes, and then it's no longer allegiances along old party lines and allegiances along racial or ethnic or religious lines. So yeah, I do think that the DA is going to do better. It's going to be the springboard or the platform for 2029. So yeah, I think the 25 to 30%. I think that's where the DA is heading for in the next elections, and then from there, a springboard to 2029, where I think there really is a big opportunity for the DA to be the biggest party in South Africa. So a 30+% party.
Well, that was Chris Pappas on why he's staying, what local government can actually get done, and what he's reading into the numbers ahead of the November the 4th election. Honest to a fault is Mr. Pappas, and you can see why those who voted for him and those who live in the Mgeni area are so fond of their mayor. Well, that's the BizNews Edge for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening if you're catching this on the audio channels. And if you want more, please head over to biznews.com. I'm Alec Hogg. I'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, cheerio. In uncertain times, good information is priceless. The BizNews Conference is heading back to the Drakensberg. Join me, Alec Hogg, from the 11th to the 14th of August for BNC 9, Champagne Sports Resort, where it all began, and where our community gathers for honest conversations, smart investing insights, and direct access to some of South Africa's sharpest minds. Come and rub shoulders with the best we've got. 28 keynote speakers, 3 days. Seats are available now. Book your seat by clicking the link in the description. Start your day a step ahead. BizNews Insider. It delivers the business stories that matter every morning straight to your inbox, sharp, fast, and free. Subscribe now.